Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Monday. So this is the time of year I'm no longer throwing a swim jig or a spinner bait when I'm covering water. It's all about a top water, because a top water isn't just going to work in clear water situations, but really in all water clarities. And it's the most natural offering for a bass. Their eyes are on the top of their head, and the way it sits on top, they can't really get a good look at it. So if you're fishing dirty water, stained water, typically you're going to be throwing the bait around cover like stumps or laydowns. But when you're in clear water, a bass can swim a long way to eat a topwater. If you're fishing out a little bit deeper, you want those fish coming up and schooling if you're going to throw a topwater. But as long as you don't have more than 5 feet of water over those fish's head, they will come and get it. Smallmouth will swim a lot further, but a largemouth 5 feet of water is typically my rule. And this time of year when I'm fishing a moving bait, I am throwing all topwaters. So instead of going through all those subsurface lures that I'm fishing earlier in the year, this time of year, it's a buzz bait, it's a spook, it's a prop bait, it's a frog, it's a popper. So I'm going to go through the whole thing, and I'm going to talk about a couple of different poppers because I think it's important to note basically what each one does before you buy one if you haven't thrown one, and then what you're imitating and the types of structure that I'm going to fish it around, because this bait is great when I'm covering big ridges. This bait is when I need to cover one stump. So I'm going to go into what these baits do, but let's start with a pencil popper. This is kind of a hybrid between your big topwater walking baits like a spook and your smaller poppers. So it has that popping nose, but it doesn't have as much surface as your normal popper. So for that reason, that's going to cause this bait to walk. And they have smaller versions. This is the Yo-Zuri. It has that smaller cup. Same thing with your old school Excalibur Pop and Image. It's smaller. So these baits are going to walk when you pop them. Your standard popper, like your Rebel Pop R, much bigger cup there. And this is going to be just your subtle, or not really your subtle, but your louder blooping pop noise when you're popping it. And it's not going to walk. It's going to come straight back to the boat. So when I'm thinking of pencil popper, this is the best imitator for your blueback herring. If you're not familiar with the blueback herring, it's a very fast swimming forage, but this is also a really good imitator when you're trying to make this look like a gizzard shad, but maybe you have too much wind to throw your typical spook. So this is great around gizzard shad when you have a lot of wind. There's a little bit too much of a ripple on the water, but I'm typically going to be throwing this bait when I have to cover a big ridge, a big tapering point, a big flat where I don't really have any places on it that look better than anywhere else. So I just can cover a lot of water with this bait. It's very noisy. 3 hooks. I like that when fish are coming a long way to get my bait. And I can throw this thing a mile even into the wind. So this is a Berkley Cane Walker. I'm a big fan of it. I keep this very simple. Chrome and blue, bone, and some type of translucent color. It's really all you need. So covering a lot of water and fishing fast is what I'm doing with the pencil popper. Now, when I get around cover, it can be clear water. It can be a little bit more of a stain in the water. That's when I really like the popper. Now, the popper is just a special bait. I think it gets overlooked because it is such a stereotypical bass fishing bait that guys just say we don't need to throw that. So it doesn't get thrown as much as it should. So this is a bait for me that when I get into July and August, I really feel like this is probably your best topwater bait. You know, this is the time of year where the fish are going to start hunkering down on one spot, and you're almost fishing this like a worm. You're throwing it out, you're popping it one time, you're letting the ripples, the bubbles go away, pop it again, just let it sit there. They're going to be underneath it, they're going to be looking at it, and then they'll commit. So it's a lot like a worm. You're just throwing it out there. You know where the bass are at. You know they're sitting in a general area, and then you're just fishing slow. So that's what I really like about the popper. It does a great job imitating bluegill, but it is also a great imitator of a wounded shad. So bubbles and that bubble trail that it's going to leave behind it, I really like that on these humid days. We're always having storms come in between the storms. The popper bite can light up. Something I always just keep in my hand. Now, if I got to cover a little bit more water, that's where I like this Yo-Zuri. Has that smaller, it walks a little bit more. So I think you're having a little bit more drawing power when you get in these bigger areas. So this is kind of the best of both worlds. Still that small imitation. You know, you may be imitating a bluegill, you may be imitating a more realistic looking shad like a threadfin, but you're also can fish this fast. So I like the walking ones when I got to fish fast. I like the popper when I'm fishing around one single piece of cover or smaller areas. Maybe it's just a 50-yard stretch. It's the only places I'm getting bit. I can just go back and forth with that popper, like how I would fish a worm. So when you're thinking of these baits, the popper, same place you would throw a worm in, and then your big walking baits would be the same place you would like crank or throw something that you're going to fish fast. But this is a very important bait this time of year. I feel like it gets overlooked. And I will also say this, I like these translucents, but this goldish, kind of like a tannish, greenish color, you're kind of imitating bluegill and shad. So this is one of those colors that I really like in a popper. Your natural bluegill patterns are always good. And then in every topwater, you need some kind of bone or white, and you need some type of chrome. But that is chugger popper fishing. It's a super easy way to fish and get bit. It's very elementary, something we've probably all learned very early on, but it is a big deal, and it's a big deal everywhere I've ever been. So this time of year, July, August, you can't beat these baits. Try them. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.